With the WINN FM News, I am Kevin Brown. Our top stories. St. Kitts and Nevis implements Phase 2 of single-use plastic ban, urges public cooperation. St. Kitts and Nevis amplifies global voice in pursuit of sustainable development. Education Minister unveils comprehensive school infrastructure upgrades. Drought in Jamaica hampering operations at place of safety. St. Lucia Carnival 2025 sees record tourist arrivals. Internationally, Donald Trump moves nuclear submarines after Russian ex-president's comments. Now, the details. The Federation has reached a critical juncture in its commitment to environmental sustainability with the full implementation of Phase 2 of the single-use plastic ban effective July 31st, 2025. Announced by the Honorable Dr. Joel Clark, Minister of Sustainable Development, Environment, Climate Action and Constituency Empowerment, it signals the nation's continued stride towards a plastic-free future.
Supermarkets, restaurants, etc., should not be distributing styrofoam food containers, egg crates, or plastic straws. I welcome the institutions which have already transitioned their styrofoam egg crates to cardboard. And we also welcome the transition even by our general public with our single-use plastic ban.
The importation of these items was already banned as of April 30th, 2025. Despite the progress, the ministry acknowledges ongoing challenges, particularly concerning compliance among certain vendor groups.
I would say that as the Ministry of Environment, Constituency Empowerment, Climate Action, in partnership with Solid Waste Management Corporation, as well as the Parks and Beaches Unit, continues its mandate of pollution and waste management, we thank the people of St. Kitts and Nevis for the partnership in this single-use plastic ban. We do acknowledge that we're seeing pockets of plastic distribution, mainly amongst our street vendors and our market vendors, and we're hoping that the stock of plastic would eventually disappear, and we encourage partnership by the persons who are patronizing these businesses. Walk with your reusable bags, and when you are offered a plastic bag, just say no and remind that vendor that you are no longer supposed to distribute plastic bags.
The minister underscored that behavioral change is a gradual process and emphasized education over punitive measures at this stage.
We acknowledge that this is a behavioral change, and behavioral change takes time, and transition is important. Hence, no one can say that they have been fined $5,000 for distributing plastics. I myself, in part of our spot checks, I've walked into supermarkets and I have been offered plastic bags, and I'm saying, not supermarkets, small shops, and I'm saying, remember, you no longer can distribute these plastic bags, so please take them off your shelf and let's work towards getting rid of plastic waste here in St. Kitts and Nevis.
The ban aligns with the government's broader Sustainable Island State agenda and several United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, including good health and well-being, clean water and sanitation, and responsible consumption and production. St. Kitts and Nevis has joined over 100 countries and at least 12 Caribbean nations in implementing full or partial bans on single-use plastics, leveraging insights from regional counterparts. The final phase of the ban is already on the horizon.
I remind us also that August 31st will see the importation ban on plastic plates, cups and cutlery, and November 31st will see our final ban, which is the sale and distribution of plastic plates, cups, and cutlery.
Importers of bioplastics now require a license from the Department of Environment. Other environmentally friendly alternatives such as paper, bamboo, and wood products continue to benefit from duty-free concessions. Plastic bottles, hard plastics used at home, trash bags, and plastic bags for packaging bread or meats are not affected by this ban. The Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis continues to solidify its presence on the international stage, particularly in the realm of sustainable development and climate action. Recent engagements by the Minister of Sustainable Development, Environment, Climate Action and Constituency Empowerment, the Honorable Dr. Joel Clark, underscore the nation's commitment to global solidarity and its proactive approach to addressing critical environmental and social challenges. Dr. Clark provided an update on the Ministry of Sustainable Development's recent work abroad highlighting the Federation's participation in the high-level political forum on sustainable development at the United Nations. The annual event serves as a crucial platform for strategic engagements and for nations to present their voluntary national reviews. The Federation is also pioneering efforts at the local level, being one of the first Caribbean nations conduct a local voluntary national review on NEVIS, which will be a significant component of their next presentation in 2026. St. Kitts and Nevis, on behalf of CARICOM, delivered a statement at the forum that emphasized the critical need for countries in the global north to increase their contributions towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals (SDGs), especially with the 2030 agenda deadline rapidly approaching.
This year, St. Kitts and Nevis had the privilege of presenting on behalf of CARICOM the CARICOM statement, which spoke to the need for global North countries to contribute more to attaining the Sustainable Development Goals. And we recognize that since we are just 5 years away from the 2030 agenda, we need to do much more to get there. Sadly to say, in the Caribbean and right here in St. Kitts and Nevis, we're not even 1/3 of the way in meeting our Sustainable Development Goals. That means every single goal is a challenge, hence the need for us to amplify and accelerate meeting these goals with our Sustainable Island State agenda.
A pivotal moment during these engagements was the meeting with the United Nations Deputy Secretary General, Amina Mohammed.
Thankfully, we had the honor of meeting the UN Deputy Secretary General, Ms. Amina Mohammed, where we had the opportunity to present our Sustainable Island State model and a commitment by the UN to contribute more to helping countries like St. Kitts and Nevis who may not be able to access overseas development aid because of our high income status, but to access more technical cooperation towards attaining the Sustainable Development Goals.
Furthermore, St. Kitts and Nevis engaged with the Executive Director of the United Nations Women. The Federation is playing a notable role in the revitalization of the Commission on the Status of Women, a member state-led process aimed at strengthening the Commission to advance gender equality.
To note, St. Kitts and Nevis assumes a seat on the Economic and Social Council, the principal UN organ that oversees development policy, including the SDGs. So we are taking our Sustainable Island State agenda very seriously, even at our missions. Our ambassador, Dr. Williams, Demetrius Williams, will serve as Vice President for the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly. This year is our 80th year in the founding of the United Nations, and we hope that this opportunity presents for the Federation a clear commitment that we believe in global united action. We recognize that the current geopolitics suggest that institutions like the UN are threatened, but St. Kitts and Nevis will continue playing its part towards global solidarity for development.
Dr. Clark reiterated the nation's firm belief in global united action despite current geopolitical challenges to institutions like the United Nations. A specific aspect of the recent international work involved a strategic engagement with the Global Center for Climate Mobility, focusing on climate change and climate resilience in St. Kitts and Nevis. Dr. Clark expressed gratitude for the support from the St. Kitts and Nevis mission.
I want to thank not just the mission for its support, but also the Embassy in Washington, Her Excellency Jacinth Henry Martin, for her support in ensuring that this UN diaspora conversation happened, as well as our consulate, the Deputy Consulate General, that's Mr. Daniel, as well as Mr. Keith, for their support in getting such a significant conversation happening. And I'm happy to report that our diaspora is really interested in what happens in St. Kitts and Nevis as it relates to climate resilience. They have families here, they have homes here, they want to contribute, and we were able to facilitate that conversation.
In a tangible stride toward climate action, St. Kitts and Nevis, in partnership with the Global Center for Climate Mobility, launched the community's Climate Adaptation Facility funding.
On that particular day, St. Kitts and Nevis also announced, in partnership with Global Center for Climate Mobility, the launch of our CCAF funding. This is our Community Climate Adaptation Facility funding. Applications have been open for over a week and will continue until August 15th. It's a short funding window, but we have set up a technical committee that will allow eligible groups to access between 5,000 US to 100,000 US funding. No strings attached for projects around climate resilience and climate adaptation.
The ministry has established a technical committee to guide community groups in accessing these funds, with a dedicated project development team to ensure submissions meet United Nations standards.
Now, this project facility invites community groups, non-governmental organizations, grassroots organizations, informal community groups, networks, and cooperatives to participate in accessing this funding. Should you require information, you can reach out to any of our constituency empowerment officers at the Sands in Bastyr. We have a steering committee comprised of both petitions and revisions, persons who serve in the NGO space, technical leads who are going to guide our community groups in accessing these. Since we've launched, several persons have reached out asking how they can access this funding. We're making it flexible. We're making it easy for you to deliver your innovative solutions for your community groups, whether you're a sporting group, church group, youth group. There is no limit to who can access once you develop your projects.
The minister highlighted the direct benefits of these international partnerships for constituents and residents, emphasizing access to funding to improve their livelihoods.
We're happy to partner with the people of St. Kitts and Nevis on matters of environmental significance and sustainable development. We recognize that it is not always trending to talk about the environment, pollution, and waste management, but it is so significant, and for that we will never stop.
The minister's engagements demonstrate the Federation's determination to address environmental challenges and foster sustainable development for all its citizens. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Education, the Honourable Dr. Jeffrey Hanley, recently provided a detailed update on the significant infrastructure developments underway across various learning institutions throughout the Federation. Speaking at the July 31st, 2025 sitting of the National Assembly, Dr. Hanley underscored the administration's commitment to enhancing educational opportunities and equipping students and educators with the necessary resources for human capital development.
As you know, the school year has come to a close and we're in the summer mode, and I just wanted to thank all of the teaching staff, all of the auxiliary workers, everyone who worked during this academic year in ensuring that our children were not only safe but would be successful at their exams. But I wanted to bring to the attention of the Honorable House of the work that we intend to do in a number of our schools in terms of the upgrades, because you know there's always a tendency for us to think that nothing is happening, and that is not always the case, Madam Deputy.
Dr. Hanley outlined a series of projects, starting with the Washington Archibald High School, where extensive upgrades are planned.
At the Washington Archibald High School, we are going to, and this is a project that has been there for a while, we are going to be replacing the windows at the Washington Archibald High School. I think I said in this Honorable House, almost $1.2 million would have been spent at the Washington Archibald, both with the upgrades in electricity and other work that we had to undertake. And we are working right now in ensuring that come September, they would have internet connection throughout the school in terms of the upgrade being the biggest high school. And we are going to be doing extensive cleaning of the bathrooms there. And we know that there is an issue at times with the water, thanks to the Honorable Convis Maynard. By the time they return to school, that problem would have been resolved, because our desal plant would be fully functional by that time, all being well. But in the interim, we are going to be placing some water tanks there at the school so that we don't have any disruption when there is any issue with water. And of course, the school continues to leak badly after a contractor would have been paid before I got in there badly, and we are going to be doing some repairs there.
These upgrades align with the broader National School Rehabilitation and Upgrade Program, which has seen structural reinforcements, roof replacements, bathroom upgrades, new perimeter fencing, and accessibility improvements across various schools. The Deputy Prime Minister also addressed persistent issues at other institutions.
At the Dr. William Connor Primary School, like many other schools, there's a bathroom issues, and we are starting with the soakaway there to make sure that we establish the real cause of the water issue there in the bathroom.
Similarly, significant work is slated for the Verchars High School.
At the Verchars High School, again, I did promise that we are going to be upgrading our bathrooms, and the Verchars High School bathroom is one of those high schools that we are going to be tackling. Then I will have one more high school bathroom to do, and then I would have done all of the high school bathroom, that is.
For the Sandy Point area, Dr. Hanley reported.
And then we have the Sandy Point Nursery. We are going to be doing some repairs in the kitchen there, Madam Deputy. At the same Sandy Point Primary School, again, bathrooms, and I'm talking about bathrooms that I inherited, but we are working towards fixing that, so hopefully we'll bring great comfort to the students there. And we are going to be doing some tiling in the kitchen at that school.
The challenges at Sandy Point Primary School, particularly concerning the single inadequate bathroom facility for female teachers, have previously raised alarms. Upgrades for the Charles E. Mills Secondary School also highlighted an ongoing commitment.
At Charles E. Mills, I would have reported 1.3 million just about. Upgrading the electricity, gave them a brand new bathroom, upgraded the cafeteria. The work continues down there now with another block of the bathroom where we're going to be doing some extensive bathroom cleaning and some additional electrical work there.
The temporary Bastyr High School is also receiving attention.
We are going to be installing some fans, Madam Deputy, in the Bastyr High School. And of course, you know, this school being a temporary wooden school, there are some areas that we have to replace the wooden floors there, and we are going to be ensuring that happens over the vacation.
Construction on the new Bastyr High School has officially commenced. The new facility will boast modern science laboratories, cutting-edge technology, and spaces for co-curricular activities, all designed for 21st century learning. The Sadler Secondary School is also set for a significant transformation.
At the Sadler Secondary, we are going to be doing, again, extensive work on the bathroom and a facelift of the school, and a surprise awaits the Federation September 1st.
Furthermore, attention is being given to energy efficiency and structural improvements.
And at the Tucker Clark Primary School, we are going to be installing some electrical outlets so that the fans that I was able to get donated to the school would be fully used, Madam Deputy Speaker. This is the delay because the school was not built to take all of that load, so we had to do block by block in terms of bigger transformers, so we are going to work at that.
The Newton Ground Primary School, already noted as the Federation's first green energy learning institution, will also see continued improvements.
Honorable Senator Joy Clark will be happy to note that we are going to be at the Newton Ground Primary School addressing a matter down there, again, bathroom soakaway, that she has been speaking about in terms of work, and the representative as well, Senior Minister.
Finally, addressing another high school, Dr. Hanley stated.
And at the Keon High School, Madam Deputy, again, we were able to present a brand new bathroom, but there was one that wasn't being used, and we are now going to make sure we do the necessary cleaning so that they would have an additional functioning bathroom.
Dr. Hanley expressed gratitude.
That's just an update of the extensive work that we hope to undertake in the Ministry of Education over the vacation, and I must extend my profound thanks to those in the school maintenance team via the STEP program, and also our maintenance unit in the Ministry of Education.
In regional news, drought in Jamaica hampering operations at Place of Safety. Television Jamaica reports.
The Refuge Home of Safety in Content Gap St. Andrew says the drought is affecting the stay of 57 wards. The facilities director, Michael Grant, says all their storage tanks are now dry and immediate help is needed for the children. Kirk Wright reports.
Summer for the 57 wards at the City of Refuge Home of Safety is usually a time to play and create stronger bonds. But for the staff, it means finding money they don't have to provide water, a commodity that's crucial to keeping the home operational.
In 2023, we purchased water to the amount of just over 500,000 Jamaican dollars.
Over what period?
And that was over about 3 months, June, July, and August. I think May touch into September or thereabout. Because again, with this many children, and then we had 66 children then, now it's 57. And you know that with clothes and all of that, was quite a bit. Last year, our bill to purchase water was just over 270,000 because the drought was not as severe last year as the year before.
According to the director, Michael Grant, there is no record of the National Water Commission coming to their aid during the dry times.
For the 22 years, we have never gotten a load of water from the NWC, but yet all of these years we have been paying our bill.
Despite the forecast for rain, it remains dry in the hills, which has resulted in extra piles of clothing around the compound and less of these freshly washed linen.
Now, this part of the facility is where the older boys stay. And again, here we have another pile of clothes waiting to be washed. However, they were able to wash just a few pieces this morning and still waiting for more water to get the other pieces washed.
But for any further washing and domestic activity to take place, the facility will have to somehow find the money to continue purchasing water. For the director, not only have their funds run dry, but so too their storage containers.
The well is for the facility here, and it holds 17,000 gallons of water. Now, I'm going to do a simple check to find out what's happening inside. Water check, water check. Now, the fact that I could hear my voice echoing after giving that check tells me that there is little or no water inside. And that's a problem they're having here at the City of Refuge, the shortage of water. So we're asking kindly if NWC can assist us, even once per week, with a truckload of water. With this many children, you need water, and a whole lot of water. We have reached out to so many people, but to date, nobody. I know for sure that the CPFSA would have reached out to NWC time and again, on our behalf, but still nothing.
When contacted, the NWC Communications Manager, Delano Williams, says he will look into the matter and provide a response. Kirk Wright, TVJ News.
St. Lucia Carnival 2025 sees record tourist arrivals. DBS St. Lucia has that story.
The acting Prime Minister and the Minister for Tourism, Dr. Ernest Hilaire, highlighted the economic impact, noting that visitors spent an average of $525 daily. Banned packages, even tickets and accommodations, topped the spending list, fueling local businesses and reinforcing Carnival as a cornerstone of St. Lucia's tourism product.
For July 2025, in 2024, we registered in the 2 weeks, the 20 days leading up to So Carnival, this is how we measure it, the 20-day period up to the Parade of the Bands. In 2024, we had 26,186 visitors. This year, we had 28,764 visitors, representing a 10% increase of 2025 over 2024.
All markets showed increases. The United States 6%, the UK 1%, Canada 16%, and the Caribbean 35%. Despite challenges like route congestion due to growing band sizes, some exceeding 2,000 revelers, the event showcased the island's ability to blend tradition with modern appeal. Efforts to preserve cultural authenticity, such as introducing La Rose bands and street theatre, were praised.
There have been criticisms about the cultural authenticity of our carnival and whether or not cultural traditions are still being preserved, whatnot. Again, this year, well, let me first of all also tell you, this year we made a determined effort. For many years, we did not have a still band on the road. We had a still band this year. We made sure that we spoke with the Still Band Association, and a still band was put on the road. Hopefully next year we'll have two. Hopefully in the next 3-4 years, every major band will have a still band associated with it, because that's what we are going to be proactive in encouraging. This year, Zuvo had a band. They had a still band that was part of their presentation. We also had an increase in the number of French bands that were the more authentic expressions. We had a La Rose band this year for the first time, the Vieux-Fort North La Rose group. We've never had that before.
There was a decline in St. Lucia diaspora arrivals, which was attributed to global travel uncertainties.
I think we all can understand why we would have seen a decrease in the St. Lucian diaspora. I think the uncertainties with immigration issues and whatnot, some people chose not to travel as they normally would have done.
With strong bookings already pouring in for 2026, the minister says St. Lucia's Carnival continues to shine as a must-experience event, driving both cultural pride and economic growth.
We now bring you these international reports.
President Trump says he's ordered the deployment of 2 U.S. nuclear submarines to the appropriate regions in response to threats from the former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev. The men have been taunting each other after the White House this week said Russia had 10 days to agree to a ceasefire in Ukraine or face tough sanctions. Mr. Medvedev reminded President Trump that Russia possessed nuclear strike capabilities. It's not clear exactly where Mr. Trump has ordered the submarines to be deployed. He is our North America correspondent, David Willis.
America's war of words with Russia has taken an ominous turn.
Russia? I think it's disgusting what they're doing.
Without specifying whether they were nuclear-powered or nuclear-armed, Donald Trump announced he was deploying 2 submarines to what he called appropriate regions. He was responding to the words of the former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev, who accused the US president of playing the ultimatum game over threats to impose fresh sanctions on Russia next week if a ceasefire in Ukraine wasn't agreed. The former president said each new ultimatum is a threat and a step towards war, not between Russia and Ukraine, but with his own country. In a post on his Truth social network, Donald Trump said he was deploying the submarines just in case these foolish and inflammatory statements are more than just that. Words are very important and can often lead to unintended consequences. I hope this will not be one of those instances. The two have met before at a summit in Asia in 2017, after which Mr. Medvedev called Donald Trump open and well-meaning. Whilst Dmitry Medvedev retains a role in Russia's National Security Council, he's not seen as the voice of the current Russian president. Pictured here with his Belarusian counterpart, Vladimir Putin was more measured in his remarks, saying that disappointments only came from excessive expectations. The US has more than a dozen submarines capable of carrying nuclear warheads, and they form part of the so-called triad of air, land and sea deterrence, the most undetectable part of America's strategic nuclear force. Donald Trump's latest deadline on Russia runs out at the end of next week. He's already said he doesn't expect fresh sanctions to change Vladimir Putin's behaviour. David Willis, BBC News.
Our Russia editor Steve Rosenberg has this analysis of Moscow's reaction to President Trump's comments.
Interestingly, there's been no reaction so far from the Kremlin, from the Foreign Ministry, from the Defense Ministry, anyone here really. I think everyone's trying to work out what on earth is going on and what, if anything, has changed in relation to where these US nuclear subs are being positioned. There has been reaction from the Moscow stock market, which has fallen sharply. Judging by the reaction in the local media here, Russians are surprised, to say the least, by President Trump's post. And I suspect that no one is more surprised than Dmitry Medvedev himself, because for more than 3 years he has been tweeting and posting some very bombastic and provocative social media posts, most of which have gone unnoticed, I have to say. But now suddenly he has been noticed and he's got under the skin of the President of the United States in a big way. Meanwhile, while all of this is going on, we think, Donald Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, to arrive in Russia, possibly to meet Vladimir Putin. And tonight, one prominent Russian news site likened Mr. Witkoff to a rabbit being pulled out of a magician's hat, the magician being Donald Trump. But I think it's a big ask for Mr. Witkoff to magically ease all the tensions that we're seeing at the moment.
Well, we can now speak to Professor Paul Moorcraft. He's a former UK Ministry of Defence analyst and author of Putin's War. Thank you for joining us on BBC News, Professor. First of all, is this simply a knee-jerk reaction by the President, or is there strategic value to this decision?
Strategic threat and an immediate sort of response, because Trump is an old man in a hurry. He's very frustrated, obviously. He hasn't solved Gaza, a problem. He hasn't got the peace agreement or treaty or ceasefire in Ukraine. He is obviously angry and frustrated with the Russians. But it's a part also of a policy where the Americans have sent tactical nuclear weapons to Britain. The use of tactical nuclear weapons can only be used against the Russians. That is dangerous. And now this general threat, it's very symbolic, because the submarines could fire nuclear missiles. It's nuclear armed, nuclear powered, probably, almost certainly. They've got about 12. They could fire their missiles from the Thames if they wanted to. Moving them closer to Russia is just bravado. And the problem is that Trump can play chicken with tariffs. Very difficult and dangerous to do it with nuclear weapons.
So what does this mean for the efforts to end the war in Ukraine? Do you think that this decision will make Vladimir Putin rethink whether he wants to negotiate seriously with Ukraine?
Putin's very pragmatic. The Russians know what they're doing. They are winning on the ground. I would suspect there might be a parallel with the last time that Trump started waving strategic nuclear weapons. That was against North Korea in the first stage of his presidency, 2017. And then what he did was go to meet the North Korean leadership. This might be a parallel, assuming there's method in Trump's apparent impulsive madness. He may well meet Putin, because Trump hasn't achieved anything except telling the Europeans that they're on their own. He hasn't achieved very much. So if he's standing Steve Witkoff, who's a very busy man, obviously, if the American president goes to meet Putin, perhaps there could be some sort of agreement. At the moment, Putin's sitting there quietly. Medvedev is a stalking horse for Putin. He has very little influence. He's there to be denied if necessary. He's shaking things up a bit, stirring things up. And if Trump does meet Putin, there could be a ceasefire. But the Russians are winning. They're winning on the ground. They're winning in the air. And so if I were Putin, I'd say, well, look, I'm doing well. Why should there be a ceasefire? He might do it because of the sanctions pressures, but that doesn't seem very realistic at the moment. It hasn't had much impact. So Trump is being very symbolic, but it is dangerous. We are actually possibly in a stage initial stages of a Third World War, because if you add it to daily attacks by the Russians, cyber attacks, agents working in Britain, this is not quite the Cuban Missile Crisis, but Trump is symbolically escalating the crisis. It's dangerous, but it's not the Cuban Missile Crisis yet.
Yet, just going back to these submarines, there's been some discussion as to whether they're nuclear powered or nuclear armed. What's your understanding of what kind of submarines that
they're all nuclear powered. Nobody uses diesel submarines anymore except the French or one or two other powers. But they are nuclear armed. We don't know that because there is a protocol. Every rule going, he is not allowed to say where the submarines are, because that's the point. They're supposed to be untraceable, although the Russians are beginning to find methods of finding out where these long-term strategic deterrents. It is the ultimate weapon, because we have 4, the French have 5. So if there's a major nuclear attack on the American mainland, these submarines can retaliate. And that's the issue, because in the old Cold War, everybody understood the vocabulary and the diplomacy of mutual assured destruction. Trump doesn't have much historical awareness. He doesn't even seem to understand that he may be overstepping the mark in this balance of terror. These are strategic weapons. The tactical nuclear weapons can be used by, say, F-35s, which could be used like Hiroshima-type weapons, and the only use could be against the Russians. So at all levels, there is an escalation. Now, whether Trump is doing this to say to the Russians, now is the time to negotiate, but it could backfire.
A former subcontractor with the controversial Gaza Humanitarian Foundation has spoken to Al Jazeera about what he saw there. Anthony Aguilar is a retired U.S. Special Forces officer who worked in Gaza during May and June, and he described how the Israeli military opened fire on unarmed, starving Palestinians using machine guns, artillery rounds, and even tank fire as they tried to get food.
I immediately became concerned because all 4 of the sites had been built and deliberately located within active combat operational areas. The Israeli Defense Forces have been executing Operation Gideon's Chariots since mid to early May. And those sites were built directly in those operational combat areas. That concerned me because when you consider Geneva Convention, when you consider humanitarian law, when you consider law of armed conflict, Israel is embraced in a war against Hamas. And we have humanitarian aid distribution sites being built and established, therefore deliberately displacing civilians into a war zone. I went into Gaza as a armed security operator, more heavily armed than I've ever had in any combat deployment that I've experienced in my 25 years in the military. We entered Israel on a tourist visa. So I entered Israel under the same visa that someone would be going to Israel to sightsee or to take a vacation. I was in Israel on a 90-day B2 entry visa as a tourist, then given a fully automatic machine gun, a pistol, 210 rounds of ammunition, non-lethal munitions to include stun grenades, tear gas, pepper spray, batons, rubber bullets for shotguns that we had never been trained or familiarized with, and sent into Gaza with no training, no familiarization. None of us qualified on our weapon systems. The Israeli Defense Forces utilize live ammunition and shooting to control the crowds. This is not something that I have fantasized or that I'm making up or embellishing. The Israeli Defense Forces have said it numerous times, even in their responses to civilians that have been killed near or around the sites, that they were shooting at them or near them. The Israeli Defense Forces control the crowds in and out of the sites using automatic machine gun fire, artillery rounds, mortar rounds, and at times tank fire from the Markava tank against unarmed, starving civilians, women, children, the disabled. When they're released to come onto the site, they're released in one giant, massive wave. Unorganized, chaotic, stampeding, while the IDF shoot at them, at their feet, over their heads, and sometimes into the crowds to control them to make sure that they come into the site without deviating from the road. Once they're on site, the distribution material, the aid, if you will, is put on site in just rows and pallets of boxes. No organized fashion. There's no distribution process. We don't vet anybody. There's no checking of IDs. There's no checking of credentials. We don't know who's Hamas and who's not. We don't know who anybody is. There's no verification. Typically, 25,000 boxes of aid are gone, rummaged through, picked apart, and gone in an average of 8 minutes. If you can imagine 8,000 to 9,000 people swarming onto a location and 25,000 boxes of aid gone in 8 minutes, you can imagine the chaos, the confusion, the desperation. Once the aid has been taken, typically the people left on site are women and children, those that were at the end of the pack from this massive sprint towards the site once they're released from the Morag corridor. It's about a kilometer sprint, if you will. Survival of the fittest. The fastest and the strongest get there and they get all the food, and the most vulnerable get nothing. Once the Palestinians were pushed off of the site, they were then further greeted by more small arms fire, machine gun fire, from the IDF shooting at their feet in the berms along the road to communicate to them. And that's how the IDF describe it. We shoot warning shots to communicate. If you're shooting a machine gun into a crowd, a machine gun is an area fire weapon. It doesn't shoot a precise spot, it shoots in an area. How do you call that a warning shot? Never in my military career, 25 years of service in multiple combat locations around the world, have I seen anyone use a quote unquote warning shot from a belt-fed machine gun. I have never witnessed something to this level of destruction, this level of dehumanization of a population, and the abhorrent, unnecessary escalation of force and unnecessary force used against an unarmed population.
U.S. stocks slumped on Friday, with the Dow dropping about 1.25%, the S&P 500 shedding 1.6%, its biggest daily percentage decline in more than 2 months, and the Nasdaq sliding about 2.25%. Stocks opened lower after President Donald Trump announced a wave of steeper-than-expected tariffs on several trading partners. Meanwhile, data showing a major slowdown in U.S. job growth further dented investor confidence. Sharp downward revisions to May's and June's jobs numbers proved particularly unnerving, notes Rick Gardner, Chief Investment Officer at RGA Investments.
That was where I felt like we were in peak uncertainty. We had tariffs, we had whether or not the tax code was going to get extended, the situation with Iran. There were a lot of things going on, and uncertainty tends to cause maybe a little bit of reluctance if you're an employer when making hiring decisions. So I think it's interesting that as we get these revisions, those numbers are receding back. And it may really be giving the Fed the opportunity that it's been looking for to drop rates.
In fact, market expectations that the Fed will cut rates at its September meeting soared to more than 86% from about 38% in the prior session, according to CME's FedWatch tool. Among Friday's stock moves, Amazon was the biggest drag on all 3 of Wall Street's main indexes, spiraling more than 8% after the company failed to meet lofty expectations for its Amazon Web Services cloud computing unit. And shares of Apple lost 2.5% after the iPhone maker posted a current quarter revenue forecast well above Wall Street estimates, but CEO Tim Cook warned U.S. tariffs would add $1.1 billion in costs over the period.
You were listening to the WINN FM 98.9 newscast. Our top stories were: St. Kitts and Nevis implements Phase 2 of single-use plastic ban, urges public cooperation. St. Kitts and Nevis amplifies global voice in pursuit of sustainable development. Education Minister unveils comprehensive school infrastructure upgrades. Drought in Jamaica hampering operations at Place of Safety. St. Lucia Carnival 2025 sees record tourist arrivals. Internationally, Donald Trump moves nuclear submarines after Russian ex-president's comments. Thank you for listening.